The latest. Thank you for your love and support. Sierra Leone, Malawi, and South Africa challenged UN in New York during the UN Security Council. According to the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, that they have to do all that they can to give the young generations that are coming a better life, protection, especially women and children. They have to make sure that the agenda of the UN Security Council that is targeting poverty should be done before they leave. If not, there will be a failure to the next generations. These are the same songs that they have been singing each time they go for the UN Security Council. But we see that at the end of the day, Africa is still left behind. Anything that has to do with the Africa continent is left behind. No wonder when they were asking for 2 permanent seats, US came out to support the initiative of getting African 2 permanent seats, but without veto power. Why is it that when it comes to certain things, it's not the black person who says it, but when it has to do with African issues that they are not backing and it's not something that they want, they bring a black person to come and talk about it? We understand all these things perfectly. They have set the UN Security Council ablaze and turning all tables in the UN Security Council with this their powerful speech that they made. United we stand, divided we fall. So that's the latest around the world and in the United States of America.
We meet, President, at a time when the world faces many challenges and threats as well. Wars, conflict, and the specter of emerging conflicts are ever persistent and present features of our time. Climate change and public health challenges are not only an existential threat, but they are also reversing economic growth and developmental gains in many parts of the world. There is widespread inequality, poverty, unemployment, deprivation, and destitution in many countries in the world. These challenges transcend borders. Through this summit of the future, we must therefore forge global consensus on how to implement the solutions that are embedded in the pact. This pact must bridge the developmental divide. It must provide practical solutions to the challenges of today and tomorrow. The Pact for the Future is a great opportunity to change and also to reinvigorate the multilateral system so that it is fit for purpose to address the challenges that the world faces. It is an opportunity also to make good on the promises to reform the global governance architecture, including the international finance institutions and the United Nations Security Council, placing the fate of the world's security in the hands of a select few when it is the vast majority of the peoples of the world who bear the brunt of the various threats is unjust, unfair, and unsustainable. We agree with the UN Secretary General that the Summit of the Future is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to forge global consensus and make progress on priorities such as sustainable development goals. For African countries, the summit must focus on global action in support of the continent's development agenda, Agenda 2063. To be meaningful, this Summit of the Future should reinforce the work towards ending poverty and realizing the fundamental right of development. This summit, therefore, must accelerate our collective efforts to advance development. The key element of the summit is working towards an agenda for peace, and this must involve strengthening the multilateral actions that need to continue taking place. We do believe that this is the time to recommit ourselves to adopting concrete actions So we should leave this summit with a more ambitious, clearer and concrete call to action to build a world for future generation that is far better for young people and for women than the world that we live in today. Our failure will in the end be a betrayal for future generations. And I do believe that we dare not fail. Action is what is required now.
I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the G7 plus countries, a group of nations bound together by a shared history of experiencing the horrors of conflict and the challenges of fragility, with an unwavering commitment to peace, stability, resilience, and sustainable development. This summit represents an important moment for reflection, collective action, and renewed commitment to building a sustainable, just, and equitable future. As countries deeply affected by conflict and post-conflict circumstances, we understand all too well the cost of instability. The urgency of a united global response to build a future of peace, prosperity, and justice is a shared responsibility that cannot be overstated. For us, these challenges are neither theoretical nor distant. They are the stark reality that we contend with every day. Our countries have endured and continue to endure fragility, conflict, and violence. Still, we stand here united as by a shared hope and common purpose, the pursuit of sustainable peace and development. Today, we stand at the crossroads of history. As this summit of the future has offered us an opportunity to adopt the pact of the future, a transformative roadmap for a more inclusive, secure, and sustainable world. This pact gives us hope and inspiration for a better future. Mr. President, allow me to put forward 6 points to help in situating the G7 plus countries in the pact for the future implementation. 1, the call for national ownership and inclusive government. The G7 Plus was founded on the principle that peace and development must be driven from within. We advocate for national ownership of development processes and insist that efforts to address fragility must be grounded in dialogue, reconciliation, and inclusive governance. 2, promoting sustainable development in conflict-affected countries. The SDGs represent a shared vision for a better world. But for the G7 plus countries, progress remains hindered by persistent challenges of fragility. Sustainable development and financing for development is essential towards addressing the unique needs of fragile and conflict-affected states. Therefore, we call for increased international cooperation, innovative financing mechanisms, and tailored approaches to ensure that no country is left behind. 3, fostering international peace and security. International peace and security form the bedrock of global development. For countries recovering from conflict, achieving peace is not a singular event, but a continuous process of strengthening institutions, promoting the rule of law, and addressing the root causes.
This is an historic gathering, for rarely do we make time to reflect on the tomorrow we are creating by our choices today, and rarely do we focus on creating multilateral solutions for problems that haven't yet occurred. As things stand, we are not likely to meet the targets we set for Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, because we seem more interested in moving with speed in destroying the future than we are in replenishing it. So now we must reflect on the extra gear we need to engage between now and 2030 to sustain the hope of young people all over the world that the old men and women in this assembly have what it takes to build solutions for a future that is not ours to inherit. This summit of the future is not about us, but about the next generation and their children, and we must make this pact of the future without rigging it with the prejudices of yesterday and the conflicts of today. Let me be blunt, Mr. President. Sustainable development is untenable without sustainable financing. As such, I call for urgency in remodeling development financing. I call for financing facilities that are more robust, inclusive, and humane. I call for financing that will categorize global development in developing countries, because the underdevelopment of LDCs is a drain on the potential of the Global South and the Global North alike. What this means is we must shift from the mere provision of aid to the cultivation of self-sufficiency through robust private sector engagement. I am deeply concerned that many conflicts around the world not only remain unresolved, but are actively being stroked towards escalation, even here at this 79th Assembly. I am sure that no one in this room still lives under the naive illusion that we live in a world where a war can be won, for that world does not exist anymore. We must pursue a rules-based approach that seeks peaceful solutions to disputes, for it is evident that the current multilateral system has proven significantly inadequate in resolving these conflicts. We recognize the global utility of artificial intelligence in terms of improving productivity and decision-making processes. However, the least developed countries are faced with significant challenges in coping with this unprecedented technological advancement. It is therefore imperative that the global world makes deliberate efforts to improve the capacity of LDCs to reduce the digital divide. In Malawi, and invariably in the rest of Africa, the youth are not just our future, but they are our present as well. We therefore must exploit this demographic dividend by developing technical skills and harness the enormous potential of the youth in order for us to achieve this fourth industrial revolution. Malawi reiterates our call for comprehensive UN reforms in order to create a UN that is fit for the future through fair representation and enhanced capacity to deal with complicated global challenges while promoting sustainable development. Additionally, the global financial architecture is crucial for creating a sustainable future amidst rising debt levels. Mr. President, the future we build depends on our collective efforts, and we urge our member states to turn the tide toward a brighter and more just world.